Thank you for Out in Tech for having me here. I'm really excited to chat with you guys and share some of the wisdom that I have that I've built out throughout my career. Sorry about that. Before we get started, I do want to make sure that with everything that's happening in the world, people often might think that focusing on yourself and focusing on your own career might feel a little selfish. I want to tell you that that's not the case, particularly for the people that are here. There are so many lanes to the road to justice. Yes, we should absolutely continue to keep protesting, keep donating to causes that matter, but also make sure that you are in a good space and that you're self-caring for yourself. And part of that self-care is making sure that you're in a good place in your career. And so putting that work in to be able to build your own resume and get to where you want to go. But also the very fact that our representation in places of power, in government, in business, in technology, they are radical in of itself, and they allow us to be able to create impact within all of those systems that is game-changing. And that's why I feel so confident in progress, the success of progress, because we can continue to do that, and we can continue to open the door wider for other folks. Us being in those spaces, being able to open it up for other folks. But if you do want to donate to some causes, these are two that I feel really that resonate with me a lot. The Black Trans Protesters Emergency Fund, which is a fund that is created by 3 different organizations that are all centered around Black trans women. And just like, I think that imprisonment for trans folks is a compounded, it's a fear, there's so much fear that's compounded on top of just the normal fear because we're trans, and there's a lot of misgendering issues that can arise from being placed into different places. So I feel really strongly about that. And then the Marsha P. Johnson Institute, which is all focused on raising Black trans voices to be able to drive representation there. So those are 2 of my favorite ones. And just a little quick bit about me. I really want to dive in on all of the hard aspects and then go into questions, because I love questions. But as Anuba said, I have just relaunched a consulting practice that I call Bombshell, and it's focused on utilizing all of my expertise built in more than a decade of experience across leading operations, which covers HR, recruiting, marketing, finance, customer service, business development, literally everything in a business, and tying it up in a bow and helping companies grow, optimize, and transform. And a part of that as well is something that I call the Bombshell Talent Alliance, which if you go to bombshell.is, you can sign up to be a part of it. And I give career tips and tricks, and I'm also offering one-on-one resume critiquing. So I'm giving a lot of tips here, but if you want me to if you want to have a conversation to be able to, that's focused on you and your resume, you can sign up there and we can have that conversation. So to dive in, there are 2 high-level tips that I want people to take away from this. And if you don't get anything else from my presentation, these are the 2 things that I want to make sure that you get. The first is that you need to understand how a recruiter thinks and act accordingly. Recruiters, I think in one of the presentations before, there was the mention of companies using AI for looking at resumes. That is happening, but it's really only happening at the highest level with the biggest companies. And we're talking about the Microsofts, the Googles, those are the companies that might be utilizing them. And I would say it's maybe only utilized by 10% of the market, whereas the rest of the market just have recruiters who are reading things. And those recruiters are reading hundreds of resumes a day, in addition to doing all of those phone calls that they might be doing. And so if they're reading hundreds of resumes a day, they will only take seconds to be able to read a resume and decide whether it goes back and forth, or whether they want to learn more about it, or whether it goes in the reject file, for lack of a better phrase. And so I usually say that a recruiter might spend 1 to 3 seconds looking at a resume before they make that decision. And then if they decide they want to look more at it, they'll obviously look more at it. But you need to think about how information is structured within your resume to be able to be optimized to that. Because if what you want to get across isn't getting across in those 1 to 3 seconds, you're going to miss out. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to realize that every recruiter is different and cares about different things. But what they care about is actually a representation of their organizational culture. And so any time a recruiter gives you advice on the specifications on what a resume is, even myself, take that suggestion with a grain of salt. Take it within the scope of who that recruiter is and the types of companies that they work with. Because the advice I give you on the specifics of things will likely be different than another recruiter that is giving you advice. But the things that they're saying are also representative of what their culture is, what's important to their company, what is certain levels of education really important. So that's the things that should be highlighted. Are different skills important? It's all about what a recruiter thinks is important, which is really what that organization values. And that's why I say that if any recruiter gives you advice that is different than what you feel for yourself and is different than what is important to you, that is bad advice, even if it's me. So make sure that your resume is the best representation of you and embodies everything that you are, because that will be the best way to be able to allow you to be able to find a place that resonates with who you are. So those are 2 high-level tips. Keep those in mind as we go through. I also think, so with these, there are 2 kind of hard and fast rules that play off of them. The first is that because a recruiter only has 1 to 3 seconds to look at things, make sure that the most important information is at the top, because that is where we're going to spend half a second of that 1 second, 1 full second of those 3 seconds. It's where we're going to get the most bang for your buck. The second thing is that thinking about formatting and how it allows the eye to bounce around a page. So with those in mind, we do have a couple of folks who have offered up their resumes, very bravely, I have to say. And please keep in mind, nothing that I am going to say is shade. Everything is given, all of my comments are constructive criticism given with a mother's love to be able to help you get to where you want to be. So thank you to all of the folks who submitted their resumes and said that I'd be able to critique them live. It's going to be very valuable, and I hope you guys do get something out of it. We will also be playing a little game. And so we're going to get into the mindset of a recruiter. And with doing that, I'm going to pop up this resume for 3 seconds. And I want you to take those 3 seconds to pop through and try and figure out who this person is, what they're doing, how you might be able to place them in what kind of job. And I'm giving you 3 seconds, which honestly is a lot more than most recruiters might do. You're usually doing 1 second, but we're going to start with 3 seconds. We'll see how it works. So ready? 1, 2, 3, and it's gone. So what did you get from that? And it's honestly, it's totally fine if you didn't get anything yet. You're not a full-time recruiter yet, although if you want to be, let me know and I can help you there. But you can see that it's really hard to get really anything from a resume within that time. And it's a good exercise to be able to do with your own resume, do with your other friends' resumes, to just take 3 seconds and bounce around the page and see whether you get anything out of it. But let's go back to that resume. So Cindy Ross, thank you so much for offering up your resume for critiquing. When I took a look at this for those 3 seconds, I had a really hard time getting a read on Cindy. And it really was because when I bounced around, I didn't see anything that I saw. Actually a couple of different things that muddied the water on how I might place her. I saw some project management, I saw some design, but I didn't really see a clear follow through of what this person is looking for and what we want them to be able to do. Think about how you can be able to format that. Think about making sure that there's information at the top. There are also small little tweaks that can be done there where, like, instead of after I did a little bit of parsing through and seeing a little bit more, I saw that I think Cindy is looking for a design role because her website is a design website, which actually, I clicked through her design page and it was amazing and had everything that I wanted out of a resume. And so just high level advice, that sort of thing, bring it into the resume because it is the representation that a recruiter has in front of them. But small tweaks like changing the word work experience to design experience allows you to get that point across even better. And I would also say tweaking some of those skills to be able to focus on what is important for a designer, focus on actual design things if that's what you're looking for, is going to be key. I will say I really, really loved the branding that's on here, that CR iconography that's at the top. I'm going to remember that. It's something that I will walk away from thinking about. I also think that Cindy did a really, really good job on the formatting and creating those different layers because of the different ways that fonts and colors were used. But I would suggest making sure that where those fonts and colors are highlighting things are creating that impact. So things like I said, like changing that word work experience to design experience, maybe also focusing in and honing in on some of the buzzwords that exist on resumes for design, because that'll pop oh, this person actually knows what they're doing. They know that what's important in design and what I'm looking for. So that's Cindy. Thank you so much, Cindy. So the next one is Winnie Sun. And so thank you, Winnie. I'm going to do it again for 3 seconds and we're going to look at it. So 1, 2, 3. So do we think we found anything more? Diving in, the first thing that I got within those 3 seconds, which was great, is that Winnie, I think, is a software engineer. And that was perfect to know. And it really got that across in multiple different places. The issue is, though, that I actually didn't know what kind of software engineer Winnie is. And what happened with I printed the resume because I know it's old school, but sometimes recruiters print resumes to look at them. But when I printed it, I only got the first page because there was so little on the second page. So even all of the really important information that I care about for software engineers, which is what languages they use and what tools they are good at to be able to make sure that they align with the types of software that we're building, that all hit the second page. And so if I only had the first page, I would have lost out on all of that and I wouldn't have known what to do with Winnie. So this is also a point about the type of formatting, that if you're using a docx, make sure that it is formatted in a way that it will only stay on one page no matter what. Otherwise, just do it as a PDF. I don't actually have a preference on docx or PDF. People have asked me that before, but if it is a docx, make sure that it can only be formatted to one page, or 2 pages if you're doing 2 pages, but that there won't be a little bit of cutoff there based off of how things will be printed or anything like that. I think the other thing with Winnie is that all of the different bullet points, I normally think that this is a little bit wordy for me for a software engineer. I do think that they can be summarized a little bit better, that there can be a little bit more, a little bit less words, because we're trying to do that pop through to be able to get all of the little information that we need. I also think that having a focus on projects, especially for students, is really important because I see that Winnie is expected to graduate in June 2021. That having student projects, I would also suggest, if if Winnie has a GitHub to be able to post that. My engineers love looking through GitHubs when I present them, present candidates to them, and seeing different student projects that they've worked on, particularly because a lot of roles for software engineers were looking for the knowledge of how products work and how product teams are developed and products are developed. And so showing that you've worked with teams a little bit to be able to get those products, that's gonna get it right away. I would also say Winnie says that they are in Los Angeles. People ask all the time about whether they should have a location listed. I think that it's fine to have a location as long as that location is aligned with what the jobs that you're looking for. But there's no reason in the world that a person should have their full address there. It takes up space that can be used otherwise, and no one needs to know exactly where you live until you're filling out HR onboarding documents and they need to figure out how to pay you. But other than that, do not feel like you need to put your full address. I actually think in some ways it's kind of creepy because I don't need to know where you live. The other point that I think is interesting is that putting education at the top. And again, thinking about how information is put together and how people are viewing it all. Education, unless you're highlighting an MBA or a PhD, and both of those things are required for the type of job you're looking for, I don't really see the point of having education at the top. I want to know what skills you have at the top. I want to know what you're most proud of at the top. I want to know what is going to make me say wow about you at the top. And if that is a thesis work that you've done, I think that that's great, and there are other ways that we can kind of play and pop that up there. But the fact that you've gone to college or that you have these sort of coursework is great information as a whole, but it's not the first thing I need to know about you. So I, as a general, and this is again is me, and another recruiter might say something different, but I think that education can go at the bottom and skills should go at the top. So Winnie, I'd suggest flipping some of these things, and then maybe thinking about your format to be able to also think about how you want the I to go. So thank you, Winnie. The third one is Francisco Ciroli. And so let's look at it. 1, 2, 3. I'm giving you a little bit more time. Oops. There we go. So what did we get? I don't know if you got anything because there's a lot of information. So what I got in 3 seconds from Francisco is that Francisco does business development and sales and also focuses on the Americas and Latin America, which is fantastic. That is literally the most important information that I should be getting in that quick pop. And the reason why I got that in that quick pop is because that information is the boldest information that's all the way to the left. And so that's that element of like how formatting changes things and how formatting allows you to move your eye around a page to be able to get the information in those quick seconds that I need to get. So great job, Francisco, on that. What we do have here is a 2-page resume. So I will say that I used to be a 2-page resume person, and I am a more recent convert to 1-page resumes. The exception that I have there is that if you have patents or publications or research publications, things that you want to focus on that's like in a big giant list, you can toss those on a 2nd page. But other than that, you should probably, my opinion, I think that you can keep it to 1 page. And the reason behind that as well is that in those 1-3 seconds, I'm still only spending that amount of time, but I'm spending it now on 2 pages, which means that I am going to read less information because I'm scanning more. But I'm still only giving you those couple of seconds. So it's actually to your detriment to not make it as compact as possible. So there's my opinion on 2 pages, 1 pages. Take it or leave it. That's how I feel. The other thing with Francisco that I think is great is that he outlines skills, but I do think that he outlines it in the wrong place. You can see that again, it's at the bottom. And if I didn't and it's not really highlighted, it's not really bolded or anything like that. And the fact that Francisco as a salesperson is also good at Salesforce, has Salesforce under his belt, and SQL, having SQL is great. And that is something that I would love to see in a sales and business development person, but I didn't get that from my first click. And so highlighting those types of skills is really important. I would also say, after doing a deeper dive, it looks like Francisco has some strategy information and forecasting experience. And those are also things that can be built, that can be written into skills. Skills doesn't have to be just, I know how to code, or I know how to use Excel or anything like that. It's also soft skills, and it's all just things that you want to be able to highlight and showcase and say that these are the things that you want to be able to get across. So all types of skills, you can feel free to pop in there. I will say that I don't really see the value in outlining that someone has skills in MS Office or G Suite these days. And I think that that's because, for me, it's a general assumption that people have those under their belt. It is a lot of resumes might have them anyway, but for me, they're just taking up space for things that I already know you probably can do. I want you to think about all of the information on your resume as what is the impact of it, and is it giving me an impact? And unless you are thinking about, for Excel, like pivot tables and VLOOKUPs, which then you should outline those, because those are really valuable things to be able to showcase. I don't really see the value in having those other types of skills. The other thing that is listed here is professional and community involvement. And so people always ask me about whether they should put their volunteer work, their mentorship, their interests, those types of things that kind of showcase how well-rounded of a candidate they are. I believe that, so it's one of those things that I go back to before. The different recruiters feel differently about them. And the recruiter that values your interests and values your volunteerism and sees that as a element of who you are as a candidate is gonna love it. A candidate or a recruiter that doesn't really see the value in it represents an organizational culture that also probably doesn't see the value in it, which then kind of speaks to how well you might connect to that culture. So if it's something that you feel strongly represents you, put it. Make sure it's there. I can tell you there is one of my favorite stories of a accountant who had an interest or a fun facts about her section on her resume, and I will always remember her, and I will always remember her as an amazing accountant that was funny and hugely relationship building, because it noted that she had a tattoo that said "It's a cruel world," which is an amazing pun about finance, and that is something that you don't often see with finance folks, and it just made every single person in the office delighted, and that's what I remember about her, and that's what caught my interest and made me know that she's going to be the right fit because of those fun facts. So when they are impactful, they matter. So those are all of the resumes that I have to go over. I will say there were other resumes that were submitted, and thank you so much for submitting them. I did not go through them, and maybe you're super thankful for it and you say, whew, I'm not getting my criticisms live. But again, if anyone wants to be able to do one-on-one resume critiquing, we can totally do that. You can just sign up at bombshell.is. And so we're running out of time, so I was gonna go through my resume, but I can post that up on probably one of my blogs, and you can talk through some of the ways and reasons why I built my resume the way it is. You can see some of those tips and tricks as well. So I'm going to open things up to questions, because I love questions, and because it gets to the heart of what you want to do. Again, the link for Bombshell is right there. I can give you free resume critiquing and career development, and then also add me on LinkedIn and we can chat, and I can get you, I love referring people into roles that I'm working on. So yeah, let's go to questions.
All right, thank you so much, Avantha. Love this quotable quote: when resumes are impactful, they matter. Taking that in many gems. We have so many wonderful questions, and I'm gonna try to ask you as many of them as possible. Don't forget to book Avantha on her website to ask the rest of them. So we've gotten a lot of questions today about career changing. Here's one. What about career change slash pivot resume. Sorry. Can you provide some advice on how your resume can reflect the interest of a career pivot into tech, specifically if your experiences have all been in a different industry?
Yeah,
would building a portfolio be a good starting point, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two big things that I can say in answer to that. One, on your resume, your resume tells a one-page story about you. It's a branding exercise. It's a narrative exercise. So think about how all of those experiences have brought you to where you are today. Humans are on journeys, so we have these natural narratives of how we get to where we go. And so I want to hear, like, if your experience as an artist led you to think about how people work and experience the world, which led you into UX. That is an amazing story that I want to, and it gives you a basis of credence. And I can package that and give that to a hiring manager and tell them all about how great you are. So give me that narrative and showcase how all of these things play into other things. On a tactical element though, portfolios, websites, GitHubs, all of those different projects, all of those different things are the best way to be able to showcase, even if you're pivoting, that you know what you're doing. I always say it's one thing to tell me that you can do something, it's another whole other thing to show me. And so if you can show me that despite never having worked in tech, that you know how to do all of these different things, build spec projects. Like find a brand, find a company that you think is interesting and create a pitch deck. That is actually how I started my own consulting business, is by this thing called, my blog is called Unsolicited Advice, because that's how I started my business, by giving unsolicited advice to companies to be able to show that I knew what I was doing. And I think that you can do that too.
That's really, really great advice. We've also received a number of questions about formatting. Do you have any advice on columns versus block formatting on a resume, particularly for ATS? Do you have suggestions on different formatting resumes, like services online, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so I think in terms of formatting, the biggest things is to make sure that your resume tells the story that you want it to tell. And so at the beginning, I talked about how formatting can lead the eye where it wants to go, by having things bolded, by having things in color, by having things highlighted, and placing them around the resume. That tells the story about how things are, how a recruiter is going to pop through your resume. That's the biggest thing. In other cases, like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with picking up a template from a free template that's online and starting work there. I think it's, if someone's a designer, I think that there's a lot of great value in showcasing your design capabilities on your resume. But outside of that, I mean, there's nothing with using, you don't need to rebuild the wheel if you're building a car. Like, you can take things that already exist to showcase how you are. Personally, I actually went on Etsy and paid a designer for their template because I really liked their template. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel, you just build the car.
That's awesome. No reinventing the wheel. We also have questions about resume length based on how long someone's career is. So this is from someone who says, I'm middle-aged and have a lot of experience. Won't recruiters wonder what I did with my life if I only include what can fit in one page? So do you have any advice about how to approach that, or resources?
Yeah, so I have seen resumes of people with 30 years of experience, 20 years of experience. All of that experience is great and valuable, but I don't know if everything needs to be known from that one-page get-go, and everything about all of those roles. I think that there are ways to be able to showcase what is important about each one. You can format it so that, like, each one has a bullet point. You can format it so that it starts with most recent experience, and then you just list off the rest of them at the end. Or you can just link to your LinkedIn and say, for more information on my background, you can click here. I don't think a recruiter will be wondering what you did for the first 10 years of your career, because at that point that they're reading in detail, they're reading everything. So they're not just reading your resume, they're also reading your LinkedIn, they're looking up on a portfolio that you have. The way that a recruiter thinks, there's that initial like click, click, click to see whether this is worth it. And then after that, they will dive in and try to gather as much information as possible to see who you are as a whole. So from that quick, the most recent experience or the most impactful experience is the most important to have up front. But then you can also allow a recruiter to also find other areas where you can find more information about you.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing. All right, with just a few minutes left, we have a question from Emily who asks, I'm a closeted trans woman professionally because my current job is with the Army, so my LinkedIn doesn't match my identity. What should I do about that?
You know, it's hard. You have to do what makes you feel comfortable and what makes you feel safe. I have worked with trans folks who are looking for a new role, and some of them have two different LinkedIns. I think that one is their who they are in their daily life, and one is who they actually are, and creating that sort of separation. You know, I would love to just one-on-one chat on what we can actually do for you, because it's different for each person and what they can do and what they will want to do to be able to make them feel the most comfortable.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Avantha. Unfortunately, we've reached time. We have so many rich questions. Make sure to book a meeting with Avantha. She's offered free resume critiquing and career development for our community. So
yeah, thank you so much.